What's up, curious youngsters? Every day we consume hundreds of products, and as we know, not all of them are the same. Some are more common and cheap, and others are a bit exclusive, and they can be a little more expensive. From the cardamom you're eating to the Japanese bow you'd like to use, there are some things that for some reason end up being extremely expensive. For this and much more, these are 7 things you didn't know why they cost so much money. Chair teapot. Maybe you've seen in some old Chinese movie, animated or not, some famous teapots known as Zisha teapots, with such delicate detailing that makes them perfect. In fact, making one can take several days, even if you're an expert at it, not counting the years and years of practice you might need. Yes, even though it may not seem like it, it's not easy at all. Its manufacturing process even has to be practically perfect, so you can imagine how important it is to have a lot of experience in making these teapots. But why are they so expensive? Well, their current price can vary a lot, since we can find values ranging from $150,000 to even $90,000. It seems like an extremely large amount, but why? Well, it's mainly made with a material called Zisha clay, which is very hard to find. It's so rare that its price rises every year, even if the final product has only a little of it. Anyway, besides the fact that this clay goes through a process called dual porosity, which has been proven to greatly improve the flavor, this isn't the only factor in its value. Making these teapots takes significant effort, making each one unique. So we can say that with Zisha teapots, not only is their function important, but even more so the quality of their design. Before creating one, it takes 25 to 30 years of practice and experience to be able to live up to these expensive works of art, since you need to consider many details like the size of the mouth or the neck of the teapot. Gooseneck barnacles. Gooseneck barnacles, elongated and somewhat strange rock, but
Hablamos de mariscos, incluso si eres fanático de estos, existe un molusco.
maybe you've never heard of it before. These are gooseneck barnacles, which have an elongated and somewhat strange appearance, but according to those who eat them, they taste a lot like shrimp or even lobster. Harvesting them is quite risky because they are found on rocks in areas where the waves are very dangerous. So besides good equipment, you need experience and knowledge to avoid getting hurt. In fact, even though it sounds unbelievable, it's estimated that at least 5 people die every year trying to harvest them. But is this the reason for their high price? To begin with, just half a kilo of gooseneck barnacles sells for around $100. Yes, you heard right, that might sound a bit exaggerated, but it's mainly due to the risks involved in getting them. As we mentioned before, these mollusks only grow on rocks in very dangerous places, so the person who harvests them has to be agile to do their job carefully, not just for their own safety, but also because they have to be cut at just the right spot. Cutting too much could make the price of the gooseneck barnacles drop considerably. In addition to this, there are only a few hours a day to harvest them, and you also need tools to detach these clinging mollusks from the different rocks. As you can see, the main reason for their cost is how difficult they are to obtain. In fact, whoever harvests them can only do so on about 7.5% of each rock, because after that, no one can harvest from it for at least 6 months to ensure that no one takes advantage of the harvest. Finally, once the gooseneck barnacles are obtained, they are sold to restaurants that prepare them almost immediately, because otherwise they would lose their flavor. Even when they are frozen, their texture and flavor are no longer the same, so now you can imagine the reason for their value. What an interesting dish, my friend. Japanese bow. If you're a sports fan, you might know about Kyudo, which is not practiced against any opponent, but rather with a bow and arrow. However, have you ever seen a bow like this? It's one made purely from bamboo, and its makers are Japanese. Currently, you could say that not only are they among the most expensive, but it also takes a lot of effort to make one, since only natural materials are used. But then, why are they so expensive? These Japanese bows cost around $2,000, and the reason is quite justifiable. To make them, first a bamboo cane is taken and sanded down until it reaches about 3 millimeters in thickness. After that, a natural glue called Resin is used, unlike other bows that use synthetics in this part of the process. But the hardest part is bending the bow, since the makers have to place some pieces of wood in order to curve it until it reaches its desired shape. And that's when the product is practically ready to be used. However, those bows that are made purely for decoration can cost up to about $6,000. As you can see, it's mainly because of the quality of the wood and the detailed creation process that these Japanese bows cost so much money. Even so, archers prefer this type of tool over a synthetic one because it feels better than a cheaper one. Green cardamom. One of the most expensive spices in the world is green cardamom, whose fruit only grows in certain places in the world, including India. It is known for its sweet taste and pleasant aroma, and you have probably seen or tasted it at least once in your life. However, those who harvest it must have at least 6 months of experience, along with people who have enough experience to be able to tell which ones to pick and which ones not to. Just 1 kilogram of green cardamom can cost between $90 and $100, making it a rather expensive product to obtain. But why is its value so high? Well, this is because harvesting them is not as easy as it seems. The ideal period goes from June 5th until February. However, only a few can be picked at a time, because otherwise they might be unripe and therefore you don't get the same aroma or flavor. And that's why the workers have to be careful when distinguishing each fruit. Anyway, not only that, but the weather conditions have had negative effects on the growth of these fruits, so their price has only been increasing in recent years. And on top of all this, green cardamom can be obtained in 3 ways: the whole fruit called the pod, its seeds, and its seeds in powder form. As you can see, harvesting it is very difficult, which is why it's so valuable. Its value could rise further if weather conditions worsen for this species. Ginseng. I'm sure you've seen or even consumed some type of medicinal plant at some point, whether it's one of the most well-known or some that are a bit more exotic. Well, that's the case with wild simulated ginseng. It's a medicinal plant that brings thousands of health benefits because it contains a substance called ginsenosides. These give the plant stimulating properties, so they're able to revitalize the body. However, they're much more expensive than you might imagine. Its price varies, as it can range from thousands to hundreds of thousands of dollars. The curious thing is that if you look at its size, it's a small plant that doesn't seem to offer much, so why is it so expensive? Well, the answer in short is that it's extremely difficult to end up with even one after planting them. Ginseng is very sensitive to high temperatures and must grow in the shade, not to mention that some rats love to eat it. And in a plantation, around 90% of the ginseng simply doesn't survive. Its price is affected by the age of the plant, since it can be harvested starting at 8 years old, when it can be worth about $85. But if we're talking about those that are found naturally, besides being much older, they can easily cost anywhere from $85,000 to $170,000. In short, its high cost is because this plant is thought to have many medicinal uses, though there isn't much scientific evidence for this. It's said that wild simulated ginseng can relieve pain, reduce stress, and much more, so this clearly has an effect on its value. Thank you so much, Mother Nature. Anti-aging product. When we talk about expensive skin products, there's quite a long list of them and the uses that each one has. However, one is known as the most expensive liquid in the world, and interestingly, this isn't fully justified. Well, we're talking about anti-aging products, or basically those that promise to reduce signs of aging. But do they really work, or better yet, are they worth the high prices they can reach? Well, let's talk about that, since according to specialists, their high price might not be exactly necessary. Anti-aging products vary depending on many factors, such as their brand. This leads us to find some that cost up to about $1,800. Since these promise to be the most effective and of course to be better than the competition for this and that reason, while their price may seem obvious, it's actually more about production costs and time than their supposed benefits. Some brands claim that this is somewhat expensive because the final value of their product ends up being high. However, the most expensive option doesn't necessarily mean it's the best, since according to specialists, a low-budget anti-aging cream can be just as effective as a more expensive one. In conclusion, while these products may offer benefits for reducing signs of aging, the truth is that this is not completely proven. Mastic resin. If we're talking about medicinal plants, you may have never heard of mastic resin. This is a resin that is currently one of the most important products in Greece, since Greece is the main place where it can be found. It has various health benefits related to stomach problems and skin wounds, which is why buyers see this resin as a good natural medicine. But why is it so expensive? Well, the answer lies in its harvest. Just 1 kilogram of this resin can cost up to about $350, but it is so popular that its price doesn't seem to be a problem for its various buyers. The reason for its value lies in the fact that it becomes very difficult to harvest, since workers have to make cuts in Matilla trees depending on their age and the number of branches they have. For example, they can make anywhere from 20 to 600 incisions, but they have to be extremely careful. Otherwise, they could damage or even kill the tree, which clearly results in a significant loss of money. On the other hand, once the resin is collected, the next step is not easy at all, since the soil must be separated from what was collected in a process that takes months. Finally, this product goes to factories to be made into chewing gum, favored by many for its natural qualities. This is basically why the value of mastic resin is quite high, since each tree must be between 7 and 15 years old to produce this resin and be harvested. That's why its price has been increasing for many years. On top of that, some major fires a few years ago greatly affected the production and harvest of this product.